EU leaders are taking it so seriously that they're organising an emergency summit here in Brussels on Thursday.
Greenland has become the top topic here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we have Donald Trump. Is he going to annex Greenland? Is he going to come for Canada next? We have Liberals melting down saying we should be halting the pew pew buyback program so we can defend ourselves with those pew pews. That's how ridiculous this is. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got this from David Coletto, new Abacus data poll showing the top 3 priorities for the federal government right now, and it shows cost of living. 60% is absolutely dominating. You'll notice Donald Trump is not number 2. The economy's number 2. Healthcare number 3. Donald Trump and his administration number 4. Almost slipping down to number 5 here. Housing and affordability and immigration after that. And all the way at the bottom, what do we see? Climate change and the environment, inequality, poverty, threat posed by Russia and China, indigenous reconciliation, and Chinese election interference is right at the bottom. We also got this one here. On conditions to support or oppose early federal election. It produced a majority government that could provide more political stability in Canada. People definitely want another election. Parliament was unable to pass any legislation and needed a reset. Yep, Mark Carney hasn't done anything in the last year and says it produced a majority Mark Carney government that could provide more stability in Canada. And we're seeing 50%. So, I mean, Canada is divided once again. It's sad that there's still 50% of people that would support Mark Carney having majority government, essentially. They're just absolutely clueless sheep in our country, don't know what's going on. He's just ripping us off. And we see that with his trip gallivanting across the world, you know, China and now Qatar, and he's in Davos, Switzerland as we speak at the WF. And what will come from that? More wheeling and dealing, more deals for Brookfield. You really have to question. Mark Carney goes to a place like China, as you see freedom in the world. They are 9 out of 100. This is an awful score. Same thing with Qatar, 25 out of 100. These shouldn't be the top destinations, the top trading partners we should be expanding our trade with. And we've also got this one in the news. Mark Carney accepts an offer from Donald Trump to serve on US-led Board of Peace, which is set to oversee the ceasefire reconstruction of Gaza and disarmament of chips and hummus. This is all just a complete mess, really. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is stirring things up back home. We've got this. We have subsidized Denmark and all the countries around of the European Union and others for many years and not charging them tariffs. He goes on to say there'll be new tariffs for numerous European countries starting February 1st. This is for Norway, Sweden, Denmark, France, Germany, United Kingdoms, Netherlands, and Finland, which will be 10%. And then by June 1st, 2026, it'll go up to 25%. He's basically punishing all these countries for pushing back against him wanting Greenland. He's saying they want Greenland for national security. Really, it's just critical minerals to keep the military strong. And with that news, we've seen numerous reports of the 15 German soldiers in Greenland have left because Donald Trump threatening tariffs. January 16th, German soldiers arrived in Greenland. January 17th, Trump imposes additional tariffs on Germany. January 18th, German soldiers depart Greenland. What a gong show. There's a lot of moving pieces. Not only did we have Russia, Venezuela, what's going on in Iran, but now all this stuff with NATO and Denmark and Greenland. Melissa posting this, wow, Canada's weighing options to send troops to Greenland. Just a few days ago, it wasn't happening. Then Carney makes a deal with China. Now troops might go to Greenland. This is an escalation against the United States. Canadian troops won't be joining European military force in Greenland on January 15th. And just a couple days later, we have Canada Way sending soldiers to Greenland as show of NATO solidarity with Denmark. Yeah, this is going to go over well.
8 European countries have issued a joint statement criticizing U.S. President Donald Trump's 10% tariffs over their opposition to American control of Greenland. The statement says Trump's threats undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. It further reaffirms their solidarity with Greenland and says the group is ready to engage in dialogue based on principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Several European countries have sent troops to Greenland in recent days, saying they are there for Arctic security training. And Prime Minister
What's so ridiculous about the troops, there's like 50 troops there. Like, it's just like, come on, guys. You're going to scare away Donald Trump and the Americans with 50 troops? Like, it's just dumb that they're doing that. They say it's for training. They're trying to show their force against Donald Trump. I mean, let's look at the NATO spending here. This is it. America makes up more than half of all the NATO spending. $968 billion. Canada's here, $30 billion. You got the next biggest, $98 billion from Germany. UK is $82 billion. France is $64 billion. They know full well that if America's out, then this whole alliance is done. It'll be incredibly weak.
Mark Carney told reporters in Qatar today that he is concerned about the escalation of U.S. threats to take over Greenland, adding Canada is committed to working with NATO in increasing Arctic defense capabilities.
I think that's a crazy man talking a bit. I think Donald Trump making these tariff pose threats to Denmark and the rest of NATO is crazy wild, and it goes beyond anything we've seen before. I do think that we need to take him. He's not that serious. I think he's a man who has an idea that he wants something, but he just makes these wild claims and to make something happen. And I don't think we should take it that seriously, but I'm happy that NATO has come together, and I'm happy that NATO has gone to Greenland and is cooperating now.
I think we just got to get honest about how annexation works, what has happened in the past. I mean, Denmark annexed Greenland without their permission. They changed the constitution and forced them to be part of the country. The way that NATO is coming together and trying to paint Denmark as this utopian society that has been defending Greenland and is all for their people is absolute nonsense. The truth of it is they sterilized the people of Greenland so their population would not grow, and that's why the population is so low today, because of what they did back in like 1970.
About the dozens of women in Greenland filing a complaint against the Danish government demanding compensation. Why? They say Denmark forced them to get IUDs decades ago as a birth control measure without their consent. You're seeing one of those girls here. Greenland is technically part of Denmark, which had a lot of control over it back then. Naya Lubert says a Danish doctor came to her school when she was a teenager, put an IUD inside of her, and did not ask her permission.
They did this all without, as it mentioned, without their permission between 1966 and 1975. And they did it to half of the young women who would go into their childbearing years, often as young as 13 years old, so they wouldn't have kids, so the Greenlandic population wouldn't increase in size. This is what the government of Denmark did to the people of Greenland, and then they're going to be going after Donald Trump. I think it's just a little bit rich. We should be looking at history and just putting out the facts exactly how things really are.
We stood in front of the Danish doctor one-on-one, and he told us that we should go to the hospital the day after. I was afraid, and I wanted to fight or flight somehow.
According to a 1977 report from Denmark, 4,500 IUDs were put into women and girls in Greenland between 1966 and 1970.
So that was about half of their female population that could have kids at that age, or that would go on to have kids. So what they did is disgraceful. To have all these people like this guy, hoity-toity, thinking they're so righteous and everything is all squeaky clean. It's like, your crap stinks too.
And annex all of Greenland, something that 85% of people living in Greenland oppose.
Well, again, and let's look back. Denmark has a terrible history with Greenlanders. There was forced sterilizations up until the 80s or the 90s. So all of a sudden, now that the U.S. has expressed an interest, there is this new interest. And again, the United States needs to be in control to prevent a war, and that we do not want to get dragged into someone else's war.
So this is becoming a complete mess. The whole conflict with Ukraine and Russia is not over. Regardless, NATO allies here are terrified. Donald Trump putting tariffs on them. Now they're having an emergency meeting.
Well, I tell you how seriously EU leaders are taking it, so seriously that they're organising an emergency summit here in Brussels on Thursday. And there are all sorts of back-channel conversations going on all the time. We heard from the president of the European Commission on X. She said she's been talking today to the Italian Prime Minister, to Keir Starmer, to the Secretary General of NATO, because, Jane, this is absolutely the deepest crisis, internal crisis, and that the defence alliance NATO has faced in all of its history, with its biggest, most powerful member, the United States, facing off against, well, so many of the others, including the UK, France and Germany, and also...
Yeah, they're terrified. That's what's going on. Another piece of history here, you see all this mention of, oh, you can't buy that. That's not how things work. You can't just buy a country. It's like, that's how America came to be. We have territories the U.S. have purchased. Alaska, they bought them for $7.2 million in 1867. Price today, that would be $158 million. This whole bottom section here, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, etc., was bought in 1848 for $615 million. Middle part of America here, bought for $430 million. Florida was bought for $127 million. Virgin Islands were bought for $698 million, 1917. That is the newest one. So there hasn't been any of this done in the last 100 years. And that's why people are like, you can't buy countries, you can't buy land. That's how it was done. I'm not defending Donald Trump going after Greenland, but I mean, let's just look at the objective facts of how things came to be. Really, I don't know why there's all this kerfuffle. I think Donald Trump should just make an offer to Greenland and just let's be done with it. There doesn't need to be all this overreaction. If they want to accept the offer, they accept the offer. If not, they don't. Donald Trump can come back with a higher price. And of course, in the narrative now we've got is once he gets Greenland, he's going to come after Canada and he's going to completely invade and roll in the tanks and all this nonsense. And we have, as Brian Lilly posting here, Carney's boomer liberal voters wants the pew-pew confiscation program stopped so we can form resistance units to fight the Americans. This is from the letters to the editor section in the Victoria Times Columnist. I'm not surprised. Victoria's full of wingnuts. First, the government must inform Trump that no American forces will be allowed to use any Canadian territory as a launching pad to occupy Greenland. Second, stop the pew-pew acquisition plan because Canadians are going to need these weapons to resist any American occupation of Canada. Are you kidding me? Grandpa's hunting rifle is going to be fighting back against the Americans? Like, come on. The military weapons they have are off the charts. They have like laser beams. They can annihilate targets. And Grandpa's hunting rifle is going to protect us? They're not coming for us. They're not going to roll in the tanks. They're not taking us over. It's ridiculous. It says, third, Canada must start forming resistance forces across the country using existing militia, naval, air, and communication reserve units to assist in implementation. Active duty forces would incorporate into these units once American forces have occupied Canada and will operate underground as essentially guerrilla units with improvised weapon systems, infantry, and drone units. This is so preposterous. Trump has to understand that Canada will not stand meekly as his forces occupy our country. Many Americans will die as a result of his efforts. The U.S. left Vietnam and Afghanistan because of resistance, and it will leave Canada for the same reason. Robin Allen, Victoria. What a dumb thing to put in a newspaper. These people are completely out to lunch.
The damage that Donald Trump is doing to America's reputation, to the trust and good faith and reliance our European allies and friends around the world have on us is just impossible to state. This is so extraordinary. Threaten the invasion of a NATO ally, to seize by force territory from a democracy. They're
overinflating this. He's already said he wants to buy the country. Why is there all this kerfuffle?
Impact in Europe, you cannot calculate how bad this is for us. There is nothing that we need at the moment in terms of security in Greenland that's not amply provided in a 1951 treaty with Denmark called the Defense of Greenland Treaty.
This is so dumb because they even show the price tag. This is not something new. It's not like Donald Trump's coming up with this new idea that no one's ever heard of. As it says, estimated cost to buy Greenland, $700 billion. So we've got this here. Greenland would be the largest U.S. land acquisition. And I just showed you a bunch of these. This one's got the sizes here, 828,000 square miles for this Louisiana purchase. Southwestern America here, 525,000. Alaska's 586,000, and Greenland is 836,000.
Let me take the counterpoint then. The president has said that if we don't take action, Russia or China will. Tell me why you believe that reason alone is not enough to do something.
Well, the question is, when are Russia and China going to do something? They are clearly a threat in the Arctic Circle. We have known that for decades. The U.S. has...
This is funny. They don't deny that they're a threat, yet they don't like that Trump wants to buy Greenland. And further on here, they show global rare earth reserves. This is the real reason why he wants Greenland, is he needs those rare earth minerals for the military. You've got China here, which absolutely dominates this space, which absolutely freaks out America. You see America's right near the bottom here, and Greenland is even lower, but that's because they're not developing those rare earths. If America had Greenland, they'd immediately start opening up those areas and getting those rare earth minerals.
Go ahead and use military force against Denmark in Greenland. Go ahead and threaten your best friends and allies with counterproductive Trump is doing, and none of it will do anything for the security of Greenland or the NATO alliance.
Yeah, tell me about the stakes here. Do you think this could lead to the breaking up of NATO? Are you talking about World War III? What are the stakes?
Well, consider what it means for the United States to invade an ally like Denmark. Is Canada next? How about Spain?
This is just more complete nonsense. WW3, yeah, they're going to just open up this big, wide battle with NATO allies. Come on. We got this off of Reuters. U.S. says Canada will regret decision to allow Chinese EVs into their market. With Mark Carney's wheeling and dealing, I thought this was a very bizarre prediction, saying an unnamed Canadian official said they believe Trump will eventually open the door to Chinese EVs and put in place guardrails that require the vehicles to be made in the U.S. If true, Canada would have first mover advantage. Carney's transformation from investment banker to hard-nosed trade strategist is something to behold. So this is coming from Rupa. She's horribly woke leftist, who's always way off base on all of her predictions here. But according to her, some official thinks that Trump will open the door to Chinese EVs. I'll believe it when I see it. We've got CBC pushing out stuff like this. Canada wants to be the first in North America to build EV with Chinese knowledge. Senior official. That's right, we're benefiting from Chinese knowledge. They're going to put in all the spy cameras and spy microphones in their cars to surveil our country. They're framing this as this is a great thing. We get their secret Chinese technology. We don't want their Chinese technology. You know, it's bad when even Corey Tenecki here on CTV is calling this what it is. It's a bad deal.
First examples, though, jumping off Scott's point, Corey, where the prime minister has done something that could ruffle the bear in Trump, right? In most instances, actually, it's run counter to the messaging during the campaign, and he's done a lot of stuff that you didn't think that they would do in order to take down the temperature. Why on this front do you think the calculation was to do something differently?
I'm not entirely sure. To be honest, Vashi, because I think this is a very bad deal for Canada. If China was investing in the auto sector and making Chinese EVs in Canada, I think that's a threat to Trump. But exactly zero vehicles from our auto sector are sold in China. So when Kathleen says, well, if the U.S. doesn't want our products and we'll sell them someplace else, that's not what's happening here. China is selling subsidized vehicles with stolen IP into our market, which will put at risk our access to the U.S. market, where we do sell a lot of vehicles. And so, the fuzzy end of the lollipop is what Doug Ford and the auto workers in Ontario are getting with this deal. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So and I don't think it's particularly going to upset Trump. I think Trump doesn't like anyone doing anything with China, but the threat of importing some vehicles into the Canadian market is not the kind of threat that having a Canadian auto manufacturing plant that is Chinese owned producing Chinese vehicles. Now that is actually a threat. That's not what's happening.
Kathleen, last word.
The reason why Corey here is pushing back so hard on this is because this hurts Doug Ford. He's Doug Ford's campaign manager. You notice throughout time, Doug Ford and Corey would be pushing whatever narrative helped Doug Ford. So whether it's praising Mark Carney, a lot of Liberals voted for Doug Ford. Doug Ford trying to keep all those voters because Mark Carney just dealt a blow to him in the auto sector, handing a win over to Saskatchewan. Doug Ford now has to push back against Mark Carney, call him out, blame him for essentially prosperity sliding downhill in Ontario. You'll have the two guys fighting against each other versus working together. So it's no surprise Corey Tenecki would be doing whatever is in Doug Ford's best interest. Now it's pushing back against Carney. Before it was favoring Carney. I don't think Corey Tenecki should be on here because he has an interest, as he just mentioned Doug Ford, to him and his political image. Pundits want to come on here. They shouldn't be connected to these parties. I mean, even all three of them. Scott Reed is directly connected to the Liberal Party. Kathleen Monk was running millions of dollars of attack ads against Pierre Poilievre. This is a clown show. Ezra Levant posting this. Hang on, Canada's RCMP is going to share expertise with Qatar, the sponsor of the terror lord group Hamas. Yeah, apparently this is in addition to the new partnership with the communist Chinese police too. Yeah, we should be sharing all of our information with the guys who support the terror lords in the Middle East and the Chinese dictatorship. That's great. Just great. And he says maybe they missed the federal court appeal ruling martial law is illegal in Canada. We've got this one going through the news cycle here. Justin Trudeau's unlawful use of the Emergencies Act was found to be, well, unlawful. Daniel Smith pleased that the federal court of appeal has sided with Alberta and the use of the Emergencies Act by the federal government 2022 was unlawful. We've got to remember Mark Carney wrote an article in the Globe and Mail enticing Justin Trudeau to seize people's bank accounts. And now what's going to happen? Canadians are going to be suing the government. This will cost taxpayers money. Justin Trudeau needs to be charged and prosecuted for breaking the law. That's what needs to happen. And Chrystia Freeland, being deputy, she needs to be charged too. Unfortunately, our laws protect corrupt prime ministers and deputy prime ministers from being charged when they break the law. So nothing is going to happen from this, aside from we can point to them and say you were wrong. And we do have tweets like this that are not aging well. This one from Mark Gerritsen. And to all those that are trying to conflate the direct removal of Charter of Rights with the interpretation of rights being infringed upon with the use of the Emergencies Act, not a single court has agreed with your assertion. Well, yes, they have. Personally, I just want to see Justin Trudeau be charged for his crimes against Canadians.